right? Might as well start here then. Landscape, a delirium. From the cabin of things that never change, I see autumn coming from a sunset, and I can picture myself in a hat, stepping into mornings, clean with rain. The sun is real. Where it rises, new wars prepare new trances and bad bargains. The enemy is maniacs, and we, poem, are with the other side, the savages. Do we keep reading? In a children's book, Jack and Annie free a bear from the bear pit. They make a gift of it to William Shakespeare. In upstate New York, a Hasidic child is stolen and killed by a bear. I am reaching for my hat now, almost all the way to China. In the cabin of things that never change, Li Po teases another poet about suffering and about his enormous old straw hat. War on terror? War is terror. Only ask the Great Wall falling to pieces, or Li Po. I am in a trance of irrational courtesies, irrational discourtesies, and a struggle which, poem, you will never know, for a day's sobriety. Jack and Annie and a bear and a baby, I can picture them riding along the Great Wall on an enormous bicycle. It's a too rough lullaby, a paradise too early, swarming with golden bugs and wishful thinking. It's a desert at midday, falling into the sea. My family lives about 20 miles southwest of Las Vegas, in the middle of essentially nowhere. But there's a little town called Blue Diamond where we take the children trick-or-treating every Halloween. And the little town really knocks itself out for trick-or-treating. It's a wonderful, strange throwback of a place. And I drive my car slowly behind the kids as they go from house to house and get their candy. And this poem comes from one of those Halloweens where my son, who went as Death, and my daughter, who went as a fairy, and my son's best friend, who only eats white things. So it has to be Cheerios or white bread or white cheese. He went as Starvation. And he makes a very convincing starvation. And so, you know, I put on my costume just so I fit in with the general panoply, and drive my little car at, 1 mile an hour with a bottle of bourbon under my mask. And it seems to me a fairly decent description of the body politic in Blue Diamond, Nevada, which is a wonderful town, and no one will ever see it. Halloween, Blue Diamond, Nevada. These are stars made wholly of wood smoke. I am drinking to them, as up ahead of me are children, 3 of them, Death, a fairy, and tow-headed Starvation, go from door to door to get their candy. I am drinking under a mask, and the whiskey mixes with the wood smoke, kindling stars above me. I know I feel the Republic is dying, because the Republic is dying. Sweet Jesus gives me candy I can breathe. Starvation has a girlfriend now. It's very exciting. I met her. Her name is Brittany, and she's very nice. So it's good to know that Starvation is dating at last. This is called To the World. You are the last guitar, a morning of age that ends in tender, first, and simple noises. To the north of here, an old man is dying. To the east, his sister bleeds into her brain. So it goes. And sometimes it goes very far, but never close to you, never in sight of the first mountain from which I threw myself into the trees, whose tops are oceans, and whose wood, if I lived, awakened as guitars. I can't complain. When I am born again, I will begin. Good world, you are the rumor I believe when no one's there but me. Now this might sound a little bit radical, but it really isn't. Against creation. I mean, creating the universe was an iffy proposal at best. I mean, it started a lot of trouble. And one wishes one could have been on the advisory committee. I'm going to create the universe and the people in it. Do you really want to? Is that a good idea? Against creation. Sovereign of my heart, your temple is deep in the dead branches, moving only when the wind delves so far. Eden is a goal. I mean, all's terror now. Sovereign of my heart, I am shouting at nightfall. Bats above me, hummingbirds skittish below the bats, almost like dragonflies. I am shouting into debris. Immodest happiness in Eden's humility. Ago. Adam's fall invented the future. He tied the bat's wings onto dragonflies. Nature, even as it dies, abhors imagination. What men call extinction, I call home. This is called My Name is Donald, so a lot of work went into the title, as you can imagine. But I mean it very seriously, not in a 12-step sort of way. My name is Donald. Like a fish on a hedge, the horsefly lands on my wife's lipstick. That is sobriety. That is the end of my hayride with oblivion. I wonder, how long will it be until no one knows what a hayride is? Or was? I've never been. But the happiness I've seen in movies, all the kids piled up and hay and a fiddler driving, is very real. It was real for a while. Only a child can watch a movie sober. He is younger than the mule pulling the wagon. He is unshamed by the fiddler's expertise. His birth trumps all, which is to say, he's flying. One of the dreadful things about being alive in 2011 is that people outlive themselves so much faster now. The world is completely unrecognizable to me. I have no idea what anyone is talking about. What? What about your hat? You don't have a hat. Well, then I have nothing to say to you. A CD is a certificate of deposit. I remember, my father never learned how to read, but he was the only AAA rated auto mechanic in New York City during his lifetime. But nowadays he couldn't buy gasoline because he couldn't read. And you've got to put your little card in and it asks you 1,000 questions, like, when was the first time you made love? What was your mother's maiden name? You know, he would have just wept. Can't stand it. This comes from the playground that I take my daughter to, where the swings are always rusty for some reason, which makes no sense because we live in the desert, so where the hell's the rust supposed to come from? You know, it's insane, but nevertheless, the swings are always rusty. And they always come up to me and say, "Oh, isn't it nice that you're here with your granddaughter?" Which makes me feel so young. Can't stand it. I hear the elephant music of the playground's rusted swings. And up higher, then down again, happy children take the sound. No snakes can read. Walking across the ocean, walking on flowers nowhere to be seen, I walk on gold. So says hummingbird. So said the fountain as it filled with sand one day when I wasn't looking and my son grew old. Music dies with the man. It dies surely, like a finger. We have no poetry by William Blake. Not a single note of Bach survives. Stop kidding yourself. Time is no river. It is a shard of glass, cutting. My Buddha in the wheelbarrow holds up a broken bottle while he's wheeled away. A diamond is a diamond. A cloud is a cloud that looks like one. In the afterlife, I take my children to a playground. Enormous birds perch safely on nothing. The swings make no sound. I never know what to do with my Buddha. He never seems happy anywhere I put him. So I have my little blue wheelbarrow, and I pile Buddha into the barrow. I say, well, where do you want to go? You know, because we have some land out at our place. And I said, would you like it here? You want to be by the hollyhocks? Would you like to be by the rabbit hutch? Where will Buddha be happy? And he hasn't settled down. He's very unsettled Buddha. This is a little poem from my daughter Lucy. That would be bread. That would be a table. This is death, but it moves only one way. And so the bread escapes, and the table along with it, easily as water spilling from a cup all over the ground. Now that I come to it, why agree to it? Every quarter of the wind is bread. Every blade of grass is a table. We are walking beside deer through a halo. I don't know if you did this when you were a kid. We did. Buttercups. Do they have buttercups? Okay. You hold them under somebody's chin, and if it's yellow under their chin, that means they love you. So you just run around sticking buttercups under people's chins. It's a sort of passive form of sexual aggression. You know, you just stick buttercups under everybody's chin. And, you know, because I've become some way, I don't know exactly how, identified as a Christian poet, I go around, people say, well, what's this whole Christianity thing about? and I say Jesus is my girlfriend, and then people go away, and then I can get back to the bar in fairly short order, because they never really want to follow up the question. You know, what do you mean he's your girlfriend? Well, we like to go to the movies. Sometimes we hold hands at Jimmy Stewart movies. You know, nothing creepy or anything. So this is about my girlfriend Jesus. But you gotta admit, it's a pretty good girlfriend. Got nice hair. Very popular in high school. Lay of Waters. Once, Christ, like a girl, held a buttercup under my chin. Love fails. A flower cuts my throat, and angels weep from the wound. Little angels. Love never fails. I met a woman in Kentucky. There's no going back. If I am in a woodland, she is the woodland, the warm, soft hand extended on the leaves. A rill, a creek, a brook. Whatever it is, we've come to it in the catastrophe of little angels. Leaves fall. They catch fire, beautiful fire, and never reach the ground. Love fails and never fails. Christ couldn't bear it, but we must. We must walk on water, and through a woodland too. The actual past weeps from future wounds. We have children, and the children live on air. I used to think I would someday be able to retire, but the economy has decided otherwise, that I'm going to die in mid-sentence in some crummy little classroom in some shabby little state university where they'll just carry me out in a cardboard box, and that will be the last of me. But when I did imagine retiring, it was with the imagination, if I wanted to open a museum in which there were only paintings that had bicycles in them. Because whenever I see a painting with a bicycle in it, I like the painting. You can't paint anything so poorly that if it has a bicycle, I won't love it. So I want to have someday this unhinged and empty museum, just me walking around in my boxer shorts, going from painting to painting, looking at the bicycles and saying, isn't that beautiful? Because for some reason, bicycles are so pretty. I think they are. So this is what I have instead of a retirement plan. I have this poem. The man with beautiful manners gone. Nothing remaining, save only the image glimmering 30 years in the trees, in deep shade. One pillar of sunlight embraces a leggy girl leaning a bicycle on the one bright tree. Yellow bicycle. This is a message from the future. Yellow bicycle. This is protest and suicide by old memes. Yellow bicycle. Take me. Well, clearly it's time to get upbeat. So this poem is called Death. But it's a very cheerful take on the whole subject, so there you go. And it has some pretty funny shit in it, so it's all right. Death being what it is. Death calls my dog by the wrong name. A little man when I was small, Death grew beside me, always taller, but always confused, as I have almost never been. Confusion, like the heart, gets left behind early by a boy, abandoned the very moment futurity with her bare arms comes a waltzing down the fire escapes to take his hand. Death, I said. If your eyes were green, I would eat them. For what are days but the furnace of an eye? If I could strip a sunflower bare to its bare soul, I would rebuild it. Green instead of green, ringed round by green, there'd be nothing but new flowers anymore. Absolute Christmas. Death, I said. I know someone, a woman, who sank her teeth into the moon. For what are space and time but the inventions of sorrowing men? The soul goes faster than light. Eating the moon alive, it leaves space and time behind. The soul is forgiveness because it knows forgiveness. And the knowledge is whirligig. Whirligig taught me to live outwardly. Shoe shop, pizza parlor, surgical appliances. All left behind me with the hooey. My soul is my home, an old star hounded by old starlight. Death, I ask you, whose only story is the end of the story right from the start, how is it I remember everything that never happened and almost nothing that did? Was I ever born? I think of the suicides, all of them thriving, many of them painting beautiful pictures. I think of boys and girls murdered in their first beauty, now with children of their own. And I have a church in my mind, set cruelly ablaze, and then the explosion of happy souls into the greeny, frozen Christmas Eve air. Another good Christmas, a white choir. Beside each other still, my death and I are a magical hermit. Dear mother, I miss you. Dear reader, your eyes are now green. Green as they used to be before I was born. I don't know if you remember the war back in 2003 that was on television, and it was very popular. A lot of people watched it, and it was kind of weird how they had this camera on Baghdad day after day, and nothing ever happened. And I said, "Oh, it's Andy Warhol. This is Andy Warhol's war. You know, just turn the camera on and walk away." And, something's going to happen. The Empire State Building, a kiss, who knows? And people watched it. They watched the same damn minaret. When's it going to blow up? When's it? And I just said, "Oh, Andy, I wish you were still here. Andy would be able to explain this." Landscape with Warhol and the Coming of Spring, 2003. Andy's War. Even as the Blue Jays move in Alabama. In Baghdad, the camera sees a minaret unmoved, hour after hour, and the morning star awakens, dinning birds into the green transmission, the live feed. Reading Ovid today on Ovid's birthday, I stopped at Etus, hacked to pieces by his mother and poor Philomela, cooked and served up hot to the king his father, and then everybody became a different kind of bird, it seems, forever. The minaret has not moved. And now the morning star is changed to evening star. In Alabama this year, the vernal equinox occurs in the evening. Ovid's birthday winds down. Darkness all over the planet is a perfect match for daylight. Close to midnight, I'm still awake, reading Ovid again, watching Andes War out of the corner of my eye. In Baghdad, the morning is a desert pastel with no wind, and birds are singing, even as the blue jays sleep, I guess, around my house. To the Christians. I was one of a pod of dolphins living in the sky. My Sinai, glad to meet you. We were not otherworldly, no more than is a robin's nest in the scrawny pines. Babies open bright throats to the sun, and out of the sun comes food. Never fails. Smile for me, immortality. You are a certainty. Otherwise there is no sky and no explaining the life in it. The lilac colors swimming there. My Sinai, the robins sleep. Sunshine warms their bellies until morning. To the Jews. I am the grass I dreamed I was. Atalanta, from inside a drop of dew comes the speed to outspeed you. I've seen it. Imagine something like a cloud, but like diamonds too. The human eye began as grass. In the first mornings, water raced out of the air, becoming soul, who is the speed of things. I lay my head onto the ground. Is my dog a god because he kills a rabbit? I lay my head beside the broken animal. Our eyes meet. The world belongs to him. I remember it was the great ambition of my late dog, Joe. Jasper's still alive, thank you, to kill a rabbit. And mostly he never did, but once he did. And after he had killed the rabbit, he sunk into a despair. He wouldn't leave the body of the rabbit. He just lay beside it with his paws over his ears. And I couldn't coax him out of his despair, so I just lay down next to him. So there was this ridiculous picture, which happily no one took, of Donald and Joe lying next to this dead rabbit in a state of absolute despair. And it you know, once again, we learned that schnauzers are better than people. As if we didn't already know. You know. To the Muslims. With 4 years still to live, my black dog leapt into the white water at Indian Springs. He was overjoyed, and joyfully he swam very hard against the current, back to me. I hear what a pagan would have made. The higher sound is bees, the lower a dove alone alighting onto a rooftop corner. Altogether it is white water. Altogether it is one God, who never made a desert, and whose circus we are, all clowns, swimming. My dog was not afraid. He lived 4 years more. Now this is a long poem, but it's the last one. So it's one of those mixed blessings. All shall be well. You will sleep in your own beds tomorrow, I promise. which is more than I can say for myself. There you go. It's called Long-Legged Bird. And yeah, that's pretty much it. It's about everything. But it's the last word on everything, so it's just, it's the last poem you ever have to listen to. Which it gives it a kind of cachet, don't you think? Oh, this is the last poem. And that's the thing about poets. Everyone wants to be the only living poet. I mean, I can tolerate all kinds of poets as long as they're not alive. It's the living ones that give me trouble. They distract attention. Long-Legged Bird. And thank you for coming out tonight. It's so kind of so many of you to be here. It's really nifty. I've had a good time. Okay, Long-Legged Bird. I have a sweet house, halfway to the top of fires no one knows. A moth knows. Fire is a door, a sudden portal. He flies in, and what remains behind to burn is not moth, merely discernment. Ophelia said as much to Hamlet, who never knew. Death is an element, like water, and like fire. And there are many of them, all doors. Drowning, we are done with wisdom, which is carried out to sea. Burning, we leave old minds, gone up in smoke. In a sweet house, halfway to extinction, the air, let me try to explain. The air is made of souls of women and men, all dancing. There's nothing to see. Acumen and discernment, as much as wisdom and wax wings, are no help. You must breathe the dead to feel the dancing. Despair is the baseline, earth and straw. Everything else, when you breathe it, is ecstasy. I want to explain. Tremolos and squealings, and then a high sound sweeten the little halfway house forever. I mean, it just goes on forever, as through the little portals children pour. I keep a fiddle in my bones. At night sometimes, the vibration of deep strings becomes a trembling. I wake up, frightened at first, seeing the shiny cadres of my dreams dispersed into dark corners and thin air. Then, gradually, fear subsides. I am only the music that I am, and always it leaves me. Ordinary ecstasy, awaking from silly dooms of inwardness. Watch a butterfly alighted on an iris. When it flies away, it bursts the flower, projecting its colors and infant textures upward and out until the horizon itself is one pure flower flying home. Loving the fire, moth feels nothing to forgive. Lifted out of the water by 1,000 strengths of flowers, Ophelia lives. Forgiveness is a watercourse and conflagration all around the world, a great adventure. When I walk on ground, I walk on my bones, making music, or rather, feeling the music making me. Out of thin air into pure air, horizon calls me. I am attending to 10 accidents. I am searching through the colors. I am going home to Colorado with bombs. I am bringing a plum tree and a cherry tree for a new town. And when the avalanches come and gone, I will put them in the ground. I expect there to be dancing. I expect there to be forgiveness on the epic scale. I have wasted the effort of all flowers because I expect there to be forgiveness on the epic scale. I keep a little man inside my bones. His fiddling makes my Chinese daughter smile. When did our sweet Jesus become the purview and bad pretext of jailers? How did loving kindness come to devastate the world with wars? Overhead, a long-legged bird circles my sweet house. I feel he is waiting for me to join him, to find real wings and rise out of my own mind into his air. What would I find there? Portals and invisible heavy traffic. My mother as a baby, my father a cowboy, my sister finally, after so much heartbreak, a girl. The body travels inside the soul. The body's a passenger. This has nothing to do with Jesus, though he is right here beside me. He's unhurt. Overhead, the long-legged bird departs at last. I'm staying. My soul was kind enough to put me here, halfway to extinction with good wine and a fine little house. So here I stay. Bones of mine, play no mournful melodies. There is no harm in all the world, little man. There is only happiness on a lofty slope where it still snows. I am breathing with my dead. I feel them dancing. Thanks a lot for coming.